Oh, oh, that complexion! Every time I see it, it's beautiful, beautiful. Come on, go on here. Thanks for joining me. I'm Chris, and the last couple of weeks, a particular theme seems to keep popping up, and that's the theme of ego states. I've had lots of conversations with friends about ego states lately. But what is an ego state? Well, an ego state, I've recently done a course. I've been doing this course for about 8 months now, and one of the things that they sort of touched on was ego states. They're a very simple concept. So, I mean, you can go there. It is a bit of a rabbit hole, but at the same time, you don't need to know all that sort of stuff to actually take effect, to take use of it. Sometimes psychology becomes, if an analogy that I thought of this morning was that sometimes with psychology, it's kind of like they're teaching us about electrons and capacitors and microchips and stuff like this, when all we want to know is how do we use a computer? You know what I mean? We don't need to know about all that detailed stuff in the background. Sometimes it can be handy when you're doing advanced stuff, but when it comes down to just basic operation, we don't need to know any of that stuff. We just need to know how the operating system functions, how we work the operating system. And we don't even need to know the code behind it. We just need to know how to interact with it. But I digress. That's why, ego states can be as complicated or as simple as you want it to be. But anyway, the basics of it is that an ego state is more or less like a personality. Okay? You can imagine it like a personality. We have heaps and heaps and heaps of personalities within us. They all identify as the same person. They all identify, in my case, they're all named Chris, right? But they're all different versions of myself. What happens is that when I'm sad, one ego state becomes what's called executive. It becomes in control. So executive means it's in control of my mind, my body, everything, that personality type. So when I'm depressed, not only am I thinking, my thinking is steered in a particular direction, such as, all those negative thoughts, those unhelpful thoughts that don't really, it's more about compressing down than expanding out, It's not only that sort of stuff, though. It's also the fact that even things like my diet will change. When I'm feeling really sad and depressed, I feel like eating trashier foods than when I'm feeling happy, relaxed, abundant, and all this sort of stuff. Right? It's a very different feeling, and I eat differently, I stand differently. When I'm sad and depressed, I tend to hunch my shoulders, my head's down a bit more. When I'm happy and relaxed, I'm standing tall, my shoulders are back, I'm making eye contact with people, my behavior is different, everything. So, I describe it as different personalities taking executive position in my mind and my body, and you might call it something different, but I think you get the idea. The other thing is that only one personality type can take executive at a time. Ooh, sorry, mate. Only one personality type can take executive at a time. You can't have your angry personality and your sad personality take executive at the same time. However, they can flick very rapidly between the two, right? And because our thought process can be really quick, and when we switch, we can think very differently, but kinesthetically in our body, what we feel in our heart, in our body, like our tears, our tension, if we're feeling anxious, right? We don't just no longer sad, no longer angry, no longer laughing, right? It's very difficult to just snap these things on and off. And so it feels, right? It feels like the previous ego state is still executive, because in our bodies, that feeling in our body, whatever it might be, takes time to die off, to taper down, as it were, right? So the feelings in our body start to overlap from each ego state. However, our thought processes and our behaviors are unique to that ego state. So if you're really, really depressed, and then suddenly, all of a sudden, someone says something and you get so pissed off that you want to punch them in the face, that's a new ego state. Now your tears are just starting to disappear, or whatever other feelings that you associate with sadness, right? And then slowly, then the anger starts to very rapidly build up. Because feelings can build up really quickly, but typically they take time to taper off. So, how is any of that useful? How is any of that remotely useful? Well, if you choose to... So there's a couple of steps to this, right? First of all, understand that, you have control. You have a certain level of control over these different ego states, right? It feels like you don't, but if you follow these steps, you will. And life becomes a lot clearer, a lot more direct, a lot more focused, and you have a lot more power behind every single thing that you do, right? So, the first step is just learning how to become aware of your ego states, right? That's simple. Just become aware of it and start learning my ego state is becoming angry. My ego state is relaxed and chilled, or whatever ego state is filling you at the time, right? That's the first step, is just start to become aware of it. And the way that you become aware of it is start noticing how your thinking changes and your behavior changes and your feelings change. Keeping in mind that your feelings have that residual effect, so maybe there might be some overlap. So just keep that in the back of your mind, but generally speaking, your ego states, this is ways to track them. And I mean, you can choose to name them, or you can just be like, this is the ego state I have when I'm around these people. This is the ego state I have when I've gone through this thing in my life. This is the ego state that blah, blah, blah. So one really good example of this, one really subtle way is take note of the ego states that you exhibit when you're around different types of people. For example, I remember I was watching a movie the other day. Can't remember what it was, but anyway, the son was gay and the dad was very redneck and all that sort of stuff. And when he spoke to his mother, his whole body was softened, like in the sense that his whole body was relaxed. It's like, hey mom, how are you? When dad walks in, he stood tall, like almost like he was in the military. It was like, hi dad, like that. I think it was even a cartoon, so they even drew in that detail that his ego state was shifting like that. I think it was that Hormone Monster show. Anyway, yeah, there you go. rewatch that episode of Big Mouth where the girl hangs out with the little gay kid. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, start noticing these different things, because your posture will change, your thought process will change, maybe even the types of food that you are attracted to will change. To be honest, there's even like some people in some extreme cases, some ego states will have allergies that the other ones don't. Now you could put that down to maybe their stress levels are higher in certain ego states than other ones, therefore their immune system drops or is overactive and therefore responds to pollen differently. But as a whole, these are actual real things that you can monitor. Okay, so first step, become aware of these ego states by analyzing how you are around different people. And you can even do that when you're watching movies, although it will detract from the movie because now you're focusing on this instead of the movie. But as a social experiment, like as a little mind exercise, a mind experiment, whatever, you can give it a crack, you know what I mean? The second step, okay, so now you've identified what ego states are inside you, or at least a couple of them, and start noticing what triggers these different ego states. Let's just do okay. Start to notice what triggers your different ego states. If it's as I said before, different people might trigger different ego states. Different environments. For example, at a cafe, you might have a different executive, a different ego state executive at a cafe than a supermarket, or an office works, or a library, you know, or your bedroom, or whatever it might be, right? What triggers it, right? And the next step is to, once you've understood what triggers it, and you're aware of these ego states now, when you start monitoring, and by the way, each step should take you at least a week, because trying to rush through this, you'll actually, you won't get the full benefit out of it. So if you like first 1 week or one fortnight, for 2 weeks, you're just focusing on counting how many ego states you are and how to define them, what makes them that ego state. What does it feel like? What do you do when you're in that ego state, and all that sort of stuff. Then the second week, you start focusing on what naturally brings up different ego states, right? Because then the third step becomes really easy once you become really intimate with these first two foundational concepts, and that's that you'll be able to learning how to intercept different ego states. Now, we've all done it, but we haven't realized what it means to intercept it. We've just done it. For example, when you're really, 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 really pissed off, and then you're like, all right, calm down. What do we need to do right now? Focus. What do we need to do? That's my mantra. Stay focused. Stay focused. My girlfriend got me a top that says stay focused because it's my mantra for life. Stay focused, right? So start seeing how you can manipulate your own ego states in order to be the most productive that you can be. So if you're doing something, say you're trying to get something done, then it's going to really pay for you to have an executive, an ego state executive that is all about getting shit done, right? Completing tasks, right? Push your emotions to the side and get shit done. Then maybe if you're watching a movie, you want the empathetic ego state. the one that feels for the characters, so that you can extract the most experience out of that film. Because if you're in a executive, if you're in a getting shit done ego state, guess what movie's going to feel like? Guess what watching a movie's going to feel like? It's just going to be so boring. You're going to get fidgety. You're going to feel like leaving that situation. You'll be disconnected from the film and anyone that you're watching the film with, because you're just thinking about all the other things that you could be doing right now, right? One more thing is, when you're intimate with your partner, then you need a new ego state. You need one that's focused on creating a connection and tuning into the things that give you that really deep emotional connection with your partner, so that you can really, again, extract all the experience that you possibly can from those moments where you and your partner are together alone being intimate, right? And I guess one last thing is, in emergency situations, maybe you need to dissociate a little bit and stop thinking about me, and start thinking about what needs to be done right now, which is kind of like the first one as well. Just with an element of dissociation attached to it. So, say a really good example of this is, say you're about to get angry with someone, right? You can say, stop right now, Chris. Thank you very much. I need somebody with a human touch. You put that on pause, and you go, wait a minute, what do I need to do right now? And then the ego state that resonates with what do I need to do right now is going to come up and be like, oh no, you got to do this. And then that will take control, and you'll be like, okay, cool, all right, focus. If you're feeling sad and depressed, when people are feeling sad and depressed, typically they become a victim, and they feel like they are at cause of all this sort of stuff, meaning that they have no control. It's just stuff happening to them, right? Whenever we feel depressed, that's typically where our mind goes, and we feel like we have no control of our life. We are not at cause. We are not in control of what's going on. We have no influence. Therefore, our brain just goes, everything's fucked, and there's nothing I can do about it. Sad times. And when people do say things like, well, what can you do about this situation? What does the depressed ego state do? It basically goes, fuck you. You don't know what's going on right now. I'm the ego state that's looking for reasons why I'm a victim right now. Thank you very much. All I need is somebody with the human touch. So yeah, I think you get the idea, right? You get this idea of ego states and what to do with them as well, and how to, and with enough practice, you'll be able to catch yourself when you're in an ego state that isn't helpful to you, right? Because, yeah, that's not all ego states are helpful at the time. However, each ego state that is inside your mind has been created by you to deal with a particular situation, okay? It's been created by you on purpose, right? And it's usually to keep you safe or to achieve the things that you need. I know someone who wants to feel like one of their things that they feel that's missing in their life is people who care about them, people that take them seriously, and people that will listen to them, to this person, right? And so over the years, over the decades that this person has been in existence, they've developed a foolproof way of achieving that goal that works every single time. Every single time they feel lonely and that they feel underappreciated, unloved, uncared for, that no one's taking them seriously, that no one cares, they've found a method that works consistently. It only works in the short term, and they don't even realize that they're doing it at the time. But what they do is they have a suicide attempt. And then either during or after the suicide attempt, suddenly all these people come to them and they start asking, are you okay? Do you need help? Tell me about your problems. And everyone takes them seriously and all this sort of stuff. They get everything that they need in life. All those things that they feel like they're lacking, they get from this. And that ego state gets reinforced every single time. And if they try something new that they haven't practiced before and they don't know about and they haven't tried it and they've got no proof of it working and they don't even think it's going to work in the first place, well, what happens is it usually fails. And because there is better things to do than suicide, right? But this person will try something new, not get it right, and then be their brain goes, with their unconscious mind, by the way, not their conscious mind, but their unconscious mind goes, see, I knew it wouldn't work. Right? That ego state, which is the depressive ego state that's looking for ways to be a victim. You tried and it failed, so don't try. It's a waste of time, right? That's their ego state. That's that ego state coming up. And they've got to retrain their mind to realize, hey, you have control over life. You have control over yourself. You have control over your mind, your body, everything. You know? But it takes time to snap out of one and into another. There are ways to snap out of it really quickly, but that's beyond the scope of what I'm trying to talk about now. Because this is just basic ego state stuff, like how to learn how to switch, right? Like one thing that we try, that most people do when they're feeling down, is they do try to switch out of it. They do try to switch out of this down ego state because they realize consciously that it doesn't feel nice. It doesn't feel nice, right? So they might go, well, you know what would make me feel better? A bar of chocolate, or a bubble bath, or whatever. And they're always this surface level stuff that's not actually fixing anything. It's just a bit of painkillers, basically. Or maybe they drink. Whatever. Maybe they get stoned. I don't know. It's just an idea, you know? So, what I'd like you guys to do is to actually test these theories out. Give them a try. And try studying yourself, studying your ego states, seeing how you can manipulate your own ego states for your benefit. I'll leave you with one more ego state control that I use. I get anxiety sometimes. And when I get anxiety when I'm at work, what it does, it reduces my appetite. It makes me have a lot more physical energy and mental energy than I normally would. Towards the end of the day, I'm usually mentally exhausted because my brain has been going so fast. But I don't need rest. I don't need food. And then when I get home, I just pig out, so I've replenished myself. But I don't need food, I don't need sleep, I don't need rest. So when I'm at work, I go, Chris, you feel like shit, and maybe you know why, but right now we're at work. So how can we actually use this negative emotional state, this negative ego state, and turn it into a useful one? And the way I do it is I work harder, I don't take a lunch break, and I finish early. You know? And I actually can't work as hard when I'm feeling relaxed and my normal self. I really can't. I can't work that hard. Not under normal circumstances. So I've been able to turn that anxiety into a positive. No matter how strong, I've had some pretty strong anxiety while I'm at work before. But I guess I don't give into it. I don't fight it. I don't fight it. What I do is I just focus my mind on what I'm meant to be doing. And by focusing my mind on what I'm meant to be doing, instead of focusing it on all the things that anxiety wants me to focus on, the anxiety ego state pushes all that energy into what I'm doing instead of that. It's not all good because I'm very serious when I'm feeling anxious. I can't joke around. My interactions with other people suffers so much because I'm not joking around. I'm not creative. I can't think of things on the fly. I can't laugh. I can't do any of these sorts of things. So it's not an ego state that I want executive most of the time, 99% of the time. But when I'm forced into it, I'm able to utilize it in that way. And just get on with it and get on with my day. That's how I sort of roll with the punches. I kind of roll with what's going on and use it to my advantage. I'm always trying to find out what I can use to my advantage. So this has been a really, 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 really advanced video. I was hoping it would just stay really, really simple, but there's a lot of stuff in this video that is hyper useful if you can read between the lines and really assess all the little bits and pieces that I've said in here. And most importantly, if you actually test these theories out that I'm saying. If you don't test them out, they'll never work. You'll never achieve anything with ego states, with ego state theory. So test, because you know, I could be talking out my ass right now, but if you test it out, you'll know for sure. The worst thing you can do in self-development is keep it all in theory. Oh, I understand all this theory. I know all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. That's the very, very worst thing you can do, instead of testing things out and trying them out and seeing if they actually work, if they actually function and all that sort of stuff. So with all that being said, I love you. This has been a very long video, but I hope that for the 2 people that actually watch this to the end, because it's so hideously long, I hope that you can really figure out these things. I hope that you get some sort of value out of it and that you're able to physically test these out in person, in real life. Test it on yourself. Study other people's ego states, study movies, TV shows, people that you interact with on a daily basis. Say hi to a cashier and watch their ego state go from autopilot, like, can I take your order? Yeah, okay, how's your day? Cool. To like, and then say to them, hey, how was your day? And say it like that, like you actually give a shit, and watch their ego state shift and be like, they'll literally shake it off. They'll be like, oh, well, yeah, it's been pretty good. And you'll see that in them. And you'll see that you've just influenced their ego state and you've just put them in a good one, like a really positive, feel-good one. Because autopilot doesn't really feel like anything, or sometimes it just feels depressing. So you're actually inspiring positivity into other people's lives. So anyway, I'm at this job. Have a great day. Enjoy this half-hour video, which you won't hear me say that until the end of the video. So yeah. Anyway, have a great day. I love you all, and your complexion is amazing.